Now, all I'm doing when the event comes in is that, yeah, let's have a look at this. So let's talk about the actual contents of the event. We haven't talked about the contents. We haven't talked about how the event gets into the search component. So what I want to have inside the actual event is I want to have the text, which is the entry of our index. So it might be the name of a song or a movie. And our index also includes an ID, as you remember. So you can see here that I'm picking an ID uniformly at random. Now, in future, you'll want that ID to be allocated by the gradient component, by the leader in the gradient, or just the leader if you're not using the gradient, but I'm assuming a lot of you will be using the gradient. So in this case, to make it easier for myself, I'm generating a uniform random ID in the range 0 to 1 million exclusive. So this will take the text that comes in from the add entry event, add a random ID, and they'll call add entry method. Now, add entry I had previously, and I had a string buffer in here, and I just removed the string buffer because it made it less reusable. So this is the same as the text, the code you had previously. And let's look back here. So it's going to generate a random ID, add the text from our event, and then insert that into Lucene. And hopefully then that text will be available for searching later on. So the actual text for the add index entry event. Whoops. Let's navigate for it. Handle add index entry. We're in the wrong component. Okay, so we want to go to search simulator. That's where I added that text. Now, so this is our handler for add index entry events that arrive in here. And we trigger and send them on. You can see I have a method here called random text. So random text, what it does is it basically uses string builder. You shouldn't concatenate strings. It's not particularly efficient in C, in Java. But string builder is the recommended way to do it if you're building up strings. So in this case, we want to build up a string, and our string, it will be basically the text that we're going to search for. So what I decided to do was have very simple sentences, which consist of a number of clauses. So I picked the number of clauses being between the values of 1 and, well, in this case, 2, which isn't very high. You can mess around with those numbers if you want. And each piece of text or clause consists of an article, a subject, a verb, and an object. And you can see I've defined a number of these, and I'm just picking a random one then from the set of them. And then I finish with a full stop or a period. So we can just have a quick look at those. They're just a number of strings. So the first article is going to be either a gap, nothing. It's going to be the or a. The subject will be computer, Lucene, or torrent. The verb will be fires, walks, talks, types, programs, and the object will be computer, Java, video. So nothing particularly exciting there. So it's going to generate a random, well, a number of clauses between 1 and 2, and each clause will contain 4 words, an article, a subject, a verb, and an object, and then a period. And then it will put that inside the event object, and the event will get sent on. You can see now at this stage that this event ID is completely useless, that we're sending on to the peer. That event ID that was originally generated was designed to find a peer in the system at which we're going to add the index entry. The ID now has no meaning. So in fact, what we could do is we could change the names of these events. So add index entry is no longer a single event that goes all the way in from here, from our scenario all the way to the search component. We are now inside the handler in here in our search simulator, and we can change the event. we can change the event type to just include the text, because that's all we're sending. So let's do that just to convince ourselves that we can do it. So what we can do is, we have two ways we can do it. We can either, firstly, we can look up the event, and we can see where it's located. We can call select in projects. So we can see it's in the common folder here. Now, I don't know whether that's the best place for it, but we can move it, actually, in fact. Let's move it to let's move it to the simulator. Well, let's move to the peer component here. And let's change its name. So let's call it just add index text. Okay, so in this case, this will be the event that just includes the text and not the ID. So now we need to change the event here. Add, what did I call it? Add index text. So we've changed the event we're sending, so we need to change the actual event in here in the port. Add index text. And let's have a look inside the search peer first, and then the search component. In the search component, we don't need to do anything. In search peer, sorry, we don't need to do anything, because all it's doing is connecting up the port, the index port from itself to the search peer. It's just sending any events that are defined in there from the search peer onto the search component and back again. Here in the handle add index entry, we do need to change this type. So let's just do a search replace quickly. Let's add index text. So we just do quick like this. That wasn't so smart because I've renamed this as index text. So let's navigate back. So now we've changed the event that's being sent into the search component. It only includes the text. So we also have one other piece of extraneous information in our add index entry. We had a text in here. We don't need that anymore, so we can just get rid of that. Make it cleaner. So now our add index entry event it only contains the ID, so the ID of the peer that we're sending it to. So that's going to cause a problem at the constructor level, which is, let's have a look. Okay, up here in operations, it causes problems. So here in where we create our add index entries, we don't need a string anymore. So this string we don't need. Now it's still showing red somewhere. Let's have a quick look. Shouldn't. I don't think so. Okay, this is Eclipse, or not Eclipse, sorry, NetBeans just acting up. So I just had to save it for the compiler to kick in. So now hopefully we have our add index entry event coming in here. It gets sent via the simulator port from the peer-to-peer simulator, and it gets handled by the handle add index entry handler here. In this case, we now created a new event called add text entry, index text, sorry. The first event, what its role was to find a random peer and send the event to it, and then that random peer will now have the index entry inserted into it. So we get the ID for the peer inside the handler, and once we have the ID for the peer, we're able to get the search peer component for it. So now that we have the search peer component, and it could be one of our many components here, we send directly to that component the add text entry. It will then send that event further on to the search component because it's connected to the ports, and we defined a port through which this event could travel. And then finally, inside the search component, we've subscribed for that event on the new index port, and we handle the event. And in the handler, we call the add entry. If we go back to our search computer, and in here we just call then finally, we're in the wrong component, search. So finally in here we then add that entry to the scene. And hopefully it should work. So let's compile and build and see if it works. So I'm going to build from the very top. So build with dependencies in the parent. I normally work in Linux, and I normally build from the command line. But if you're working from an IDE, you have to make sure you have to build all the projects, because I made changes in many projects. So let's run it. And you can see it's added a bunch of index entries, so it's printing out that. So what we can see here is that it's printed out firstly a number. That's the peer number or peer ID at which the entry is added. And then we can see the actual entry added. So in this case, if we look at Java on node 6, so we can go to our browser and let's see if it finds 6. Yes, so we can see this in our browser. We can see here that the first number after the first slash refers to the peer at which we're sending the HTTP request to. So at peer 6, if we search for Java, we'll get 10 entries. Now if I send that search request to peer 1 instead of peer 6, I'm going to get 4 entries. So your job now is to implement a gossiping algorithm to ensure that all of these nodes reach agreement on the index entries. And we're done for this tutorial. Thank you.